Did you know that an estimated 5 billion plastic hand soap and cleaning bottles are thrown away each year? Yeah, not great for our already struggling environment. That's why I'm so excited to talk about our partner today, Blueland. Blueland is on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials to be better for you and the planet with the same powerful clean you're used to. And the concept is pretty simple. You just fill your reusable bottles with water, drop in the tablets, and wait for them to dissolve. I literally just tried out the laundry tablet, and instead of having to bring my huge container like I normally do down the hall, I just brought the one tablet and my clothes came out so clean, just as clean as normal. I'm fully on board. It just makes my life easier and I'm helping the environment. And the best part, Blueland has a special offer for listeners. Right now, get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/dateable. You won't want to miss this. blueland.com/dateable for 15% off. That's blueland.com/dateable to get 15% off.
The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host, Julie Krafchick. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything, from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. We are excited you've joined us for an older episode. While our earlier seasons were all about dating in San Francisco, we quickly realized all the themes and learnings are universal for all daters. So we shifted to covering dating from all around the world as the seasons progress. The fun part is, things happen first in San Francisco, the tech epicenter and counterculture capital of the world. We love for you to keep tuning in to our older episodes, but there is no set order to listen in, so feel free to jump to more recent seasons or relevant episodes for you. Enjoy the show. The Dateable podcast is hosted by me. I'm Yue, a former dating coach in New York turned active dater in San Francisco. On this episode, you'll be hearing commentary from 6 other people, which include our guests, Dan and Eric, my producer, Julie Krafchick, our lovely intern, Kimia, and our polyamorous guests from our last episode, Ben and Kate. This episode of Dateable is brought to you by 500 Brunches. 500 Brunches connects like-minded people with similar interests to meet in real life over brunch. You answer a quick questionnaire about your interests and how you spend your time, and then they'll match you in small groups of 6 to 8 at a brunch spot in San Francisco. Get a free entry into a brunch now by signing up at 500brunches.com and using the code DATEABLE. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show that opens up a candid conversation about dating in San Francisco. We're talking about yellow fever, my favorite topic. And we're not talking about the disease you can get from mosquitoes. So I have Dan and Eric in the studio with me. Dan, let me just go back to, hold on. We're going to drink first. Do you want to pour first?
I already did pour. I just know that I'm going to need more later.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Because we got Dan and Eric just asked for a refill on a drink that he hasn't finished. So you know this is going to be a good episode. How this started was I put out something on Facebook, and Dan was recommended by a mutual friend, and he decided to come on the show. At the same time, Eric responded to my post and said, I have the opposite. I am Asian, and I only like white women. So we're like, perfect. We'll get both sides of the story. Dan, what does yellow fever mean to you?
Well, to me it means that I primarily date Asian women.
And why?
So throughout high school, I mostly dated white chicks just because that's what I am.
Were there Asian women there?
A few. There were a handful.
Okay.
Was it in California or outside?
It was in California. I'm a Californian.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I just always dated white girls in high school. And then when I got to college, I met a beautiful, brilliant Asian girl who I dated for 2 years. And it was a really great relationship. We were very close, and it kind of like reset my thermostat, such that when we broke up, I started noticing Asian women everywhere when I previously hadn't. And so, but I still didn't officially have yellow fever yet. I was still kind of dating like a mix of different ethnicities.
Just show symptoms.
Yeah, early symptoms, early onset symptoms. And recently I just got out of a long relationship, and so I started really kind of diving into the dating apps. And you know how when they show you a new picture of a new person, you kind of have this gut check, like, do I like or do I not like? Mm-hmm. And empirically speaking, I was saying yes to like vast majority Asian women, right? Okay. And the apps are really responsive, so they pick up on what you like. So eventually, it just started serving me exclusively Asian women, which I was totally cool with.
Perfect.
So it just kind of happened that now I'm pretty much only dating Asian women.
You're entry Asian. That's what I like to call her. You're entry Asian.
It's like a gateway drug.
You're gateway Asian. How did you see her when you first saw her? Because you never dated Asian before. So what made you attracted to her?
She was just really beautiful. Like, she's super hot and dorky in a way that I liked.
Okay. So, and did you have any challenges or did you have any setbacks in the beginning?
No, she was thoroughly Americanized, not a fob.
That's fresh off the boat for anybody who's not aware of what that means.
Although we say boba now, which is brought over by airplane, so fob's a little outdated.
Brought over by airplane? I haven't heard
Fob's
that.
a little
That's
outdated.
hilarious, and it doubles because they all drink boba all the time.
That is correct, yes.
We've modernized the term fob. Now it's just boba. So you had your entry Asian. It kind of opened your eyes. It's kind of like, I've heard this, in psychology. If you go shop for a white car, then all of a sudden you only notice white cars, right? So it's like whatever's top of mind, you start noticing that more and more. And then now you exclusively date Asian women?
I mean, I wouldn't say exclusively.
Okay.
I'm certainly open to dating non-Asians. I'm putting the majority of my effort towards dating Asians, so it just kind of works out that way.
Well, because there's so many.
Like, look, if I stumble into... yeah, well,
San Francisco.
I do live in SF here.
There's only a million.
Look, if I stumbled into a relationship with a hot white girl, I wouldn't object,
Right.
Like, I'm not going to turn it down.
Yeah.
I'm just not pursuing that at the point.
According to Urban Dictionary, yellow fever is a term usually applied to white males who have a clear sexual preference for women of Asian descent, although it can also be used in reference to white females who prefer Asian men. And do you think it's a sexual preference, though? They explicitly say sexual.
I mean, I don't know. That makes it sound like I'm some kind of like geisha fetishist or something like that. I mean, I don't know. Like, I certainly enjoy banging Asian women. I enjoy banging all kinds of women. It just worked out that I'm mostly, do the former at this point.
Eric, what's your story? I don't even know what the equivalent of the, Asian male only dating white women. I don't know. Is there a term for that? Is it white fever?
I suspect not, but I don't see why we can't create a term for it.
Yeah, let's create a hashtag. Do you exclusively date white women?
Not necessarily, no. It just so happens that a large majority of the girls that I do date just so happen to be Caucasian.
Why is that?
I think a lot of it has to do with, as you had mentioned, upbringing, a lot of cultural influence, and also what I'm surrounded with here in terms of density, right? And the people I choose to surround myself with, or just so managed to happen to surround myself with. So going back as a kid, I grew up in a fairly diverse city. It's a coastal town here in California, and I would say the ratios were about 20 to 30% Asian. The rest were Latin, Hispanic, and or Caucasian. And so there was a pretty large variety of different ethnicities and cultures in my elementary, middle, and high school. And up until about sophomore year of high school, I dated primarily Asian girls, simply because the folks that I hung out with were pretty much Asians, and so the identity and the culture and the things, the hobbies and the things that we were interested in were just similar, right? It was just easier that way. And then come around junior year, I get into track and field, and suddenly the folks that I hang out with on a regular basis change. They were mostly Caucasian guys. And obviously most of their interests were pretty much Caucasian girls, and so I was exposed to that. And then that's when that kind of just took off, and I started dating primarily Caucasian girls.
I guess for both of you, it's not like you're like, oh, white girls or oh, Asian girls.
No, that would be racist.
That,
Potentially, mostly prejudiced, possibly racist.
Well,
right?
let me take issue with that. Your Johnson knows what it wants.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, there's a specific difference between being attracted to someone solely based on physical features and what you're typically attracted to, and then being attracted to someone or not being attracted to someone based solely on their appearance or skin.
So my Asian girlfriends and I always talk about this. It's not so much the preference for Asian women, which is great. That's wonderful. But it's the spectrum of attractiveness that guys with yellow fever date. It ranges from pretty butt ugly to hot and sexy, right?
So you're saying that once a guy has entered into dating Asian women, he kind of like abandons any quality control to some extent.
Much. It's just like, she's Asian, done.
Okay. Part of the reason why I love Asian women is it's a supply-demand issue, right?
I love it when economics come into play.
No, just okay.
No, please
bear
go
with
on.
me here.
No,
bear with
please
me.
expound.
As a 6-foot-tall white guy with decent social skills, I demand hot chicks with good attitude, right? Within the white female community, I'm not finding that so much. So, like many businesses, I've outsourced to Asia.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
I just gave him a fist bump behind the scenes.
Eric, I'd like to hear your rebuttal to that because you're the complete opposite of that.
Okay, so I want to preface with the fact that I completely agree with the statement that you had mentioned before, in which you and your girlfriends had observed that a lot of your Caucasian male friends are dating the entire spectrum of Asian female attractiveness. Now, I can say that I have dated the spectrum also of Caucasian female attractiveness, and both my Caucasian friends and my Asian friends would be like, dude, like, wow, she's like twice your like horizontal size and definitely not as attractive as you. Like, what'd you do? And I was like, I don't know. I just kind of shrugged, and it was just different. There was no reason as to why I shouldn't try.
So I have obviously a lot of Asian female friends.
You are Asian, basically, Julie.
And I think one of the things I've heard from them is that when they have a guy with yellow fever, it's not that they're trying to date them as a person, but just because they're Asian, they're into them.
Yeah.
So that's the part that I think loses some girls, because it makes you just feel like an object opposed to like a person.
Well, it goes back to fetishism and exoticism that modern society is kind of portrayed on both Asians and Caucasians, right?
Well, I feel like, so for example, my ex-boyfriend, I hope he listens to this because I've tried to explain this to him and he never understood. Have you ever seen those cutouts where it's like someone's body and it's like insert face here and then you put your face there and then you take a picture? That's how I felt in that relationship because I felt like it was just, as long as you have an Asian face, you fit into this cutout. What are your thoughts about that, Dan?
To be fair, I have noticed that I am a bit more allowing of, shall we say, less attractive ladies if they happen to be Asian. Like something about being Asian seems to mitigate a loss of like a slight dip in attractiveness.
Why do you think that is though?
I don't know. I mean, okay, so I guess that kind of gets into like what do I like about Asian ladies?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, physically, generally speaking, y'all have great hair, great skin. Y'all, right? The Californian, right? Y'all have great hair, great skin, and tend to be slim, right? So there's like this baseline of like attractiveness from that. And I've noticed that Asian women also tend to have good values. Like they tend to value education, they tend to be smart, they tend to work hard. These are all traits that I look for.
Eric?
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of what he said definitely has its hold of validity. I tend to reflect that, except the opposite, right?
Yeah.
To Caucasian women. There's some values that I identify with that just so happen to be coincide with mine much easier with theirs, right? There's a lot of Asian values or in Asian collective societies that don't typically go well with how I was raised and what I've been exposed to and what I perceive to be valuable.
And what about physically? Like, are you just more physically attracted to Caucasian women?
Yes. Yeah, I'd have to say
And
so.
why is that?
I think I'm going to have to go back to the fact that in the same way that Asian women were fetishized and exoticized and pretty much portrayed in media as something that's like different, right? In the same manner, Caucasian girls can definitely, I could say the same about them, right?
So you do think there was some influence in the media and society that made you kind of view Caucasian women as like very attractive?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. A lot of it has to do with culture, society, and what we're typically exposed to.
Can we go back to one thing you said? What is there an example of a value?
Yeah, independence, not for the collective. So there's a stark difference between collective societies and non-collective societies, where you have Western societies which are most definitely not collective, right? Where they, if you go back to, say, the American dream, they kick you out of the house at 18, you start working, you grab your education, and you fend off for yourself, literally. In the Asian society, everything you do, or I shouldn't say Asian, in collective societies, that does include Latinos, Hispanics, Asians, Asian Indians, APAC region, whatever. A lot of the collective would mean that everything you do is for the greater good of the family.
Do you ever get made fun of by your Asian friends?
Oh, absolutely.
As being, what's the term?
All the goddamn time.
What's the term? Banana?
Banana? Yeah, definitely a banana. Yeah.
And is that a negative thing?
Not necessarily. I actually had, so just as a fun fact, I had a coworker recently come up to me who I didn't know very well. He's fairly new. He came up to me and he said, "Hey, I knew you weren't attracted to Asians as soon as I heard your voice." And I go, what the really? Wow. I mean, but yeah, to answer your question, does that insult me? Was that?
Yeah, is that insulting to you?
Not necessarily, because a lot of it defines who I am, and I'm very comfortable about who I am.
Well, this goes back to identity, right? Because I think a lot of us who are immigrants into this country, we have this hyphenated identity where we kind of have to identify with one or the other. And then when you do identify with one, the other side kind of disowns you in a way, right? So you're kind of like, I feel like I'm always going back and forth between Asian American, Asian American. I find that when I date outside of my race, which happens, and it happens to all of us, it gets to a certain extent where the relationship can no longer go much farther because of fundamental cultural differences. And I've seen this as I get older, because when you're younger, you can date and you can be like, I'm attracted to you, we like each other, we have fun, we're so different, we can learn so much about each other. And then at some point when you're talking about, let's say, marriage, let's say a deeper relationship, there is a huge obstacle there that a lot of people can't get over. Have you guys encountered this?
100%.
Yeah, tell me more about it.
Ironically, given that I'm the yellow fever guy. My last long-term girlfriend was black.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that was a hell of an experience. The cultural differences between us were really drastic. And I mean, we really loved each other. Like, we got along really well. But I experienced a lot of racism, to be totally honest with you. Right? Like, I went to a mostly black bar with this gal, and some guys basically like threatened to kick my ass. We had to leave. Like, seriously. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty intense. You know, and I was, you know, I'd be with her and thinking long term, and like thinking about like, well, what if we got married? And I was picturing like, how the heck, like, I'm half Jewish, so how the heck is my like Jewish family gonna mingle with her family? Like, how's that gonna work exactly? And I realized that like there was too much friction, you know.
But what about with Asian girls? Is it easier?
No, I've thought about that too, and I'm like, so say I date a girl who's first generation American, and I go meet her parents. Like, what are we going to talk about? Like, their English is going to be terrible, and they're going to judge me by whatever cultural standards they have.
But what about your parents too?
Oh, my parents are awesome California white liberal parents. They practically high-fived me when I showed up with a black girl.
And what about you, Eric?
The stark cultural differences are definitely there. And growing up, my parents have made it very clear, like, I think you should just marry within your own race. And inclusionary dating preferences could be considered, with enough argument, racist or prejudiced, right? But besides that, if you look at it from an economic standpoint and from what the numbers show, if you date within your own culture, marriages seem to be more successful, right? And a majority of the girls that I've dated in the past were Jewish.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are swapping.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Dude.
There is an Asian Jewish.
I was gonna
Yeah, dude, there is a thing.
Dude, the Asians and the Jews are like,
It's a thing.
Your thing that you just said about the immigrants. I mean, I'm Jewish, so I can say this, but it's like,
Mazel tov, sister.
Mazel.
like I'm not just white. I identify with Judaism, like Jewish culture, right? It's like the same thing as being Asian American. So I think there is a similarity there.
Well, going back to what Yue said earlier, being white in America is kind of weird because it's almost like the absence of an ethnicity, right? Like we're like an empty glass with nothing in it.
A template.
Right, so I find myself like overcompensating on the Jewish aspect just so I can have some kind of identity.
Gotcha. I hear this from a lot of my white male friends who date Asian because they're like, well, the Asian culture is so rich and is so rich in history that I feel like I can, latch on to something of more
Like, what do we
substance.
have as white people? Like NASCAR? Like, what the hell is there?
I'm not saying that it's only Jewish people that have Asian or yellow fever, but
there's a lot.
Yeah, no, there are. Judaism and those of Jewish descent would typically be considered collective for the most part. A lot of emphasis on the family.
So you've dated Jewish girls in the past. Why have those relationships ended?
When the relationship would become more serious, then long-term logistics would become an issue, right? Such as, would you convert to my religion? Like, well, I am circumcised, so yes, that shouldn't be a problem, right?
Step one.
Complete. Challenge accepted and finished.
What are some of the differences between dating a white woman and an Asian woman in your experience?
So a lot of the Asian girls that I have hung out with or dated, most of the time will primarily associate with strictly Asians for the most part.
Okay.
Or a large majority of them will be Asian, right? I didn't see much diversity. I didn't see much growth in terms of learning from somebody who is outside of your group. I believe in a lot of self-improvement, and that has to stem from being able to hang out with and learning from people outside of your normal group of folks that you hang out with.
I think you and I can relate to this because I'm not first generation, I'm like 0.5 generation. My parents came to the US to give me a better life, and I feel like if you brought me all the way here from China, I probably should learn other people's cultures instead of sticking to my own. So I think that's why I've always been attracted to people of other races. I'm not just saying white, because I feel like I'm in America for a reason. If I wanted to date Asians, I would just go back to Asia, right?
Right.
So it's almost that continuing education, as I like to call it.
How's that going?
It's great. I'm learning so much about different countries. But Dan, what about you? What are some of the differences of dating an Asian woman versus non-Asian?
White girls are way more okay with relationship ambiguity. Right, like there's the first little bit of dating, before you have that like DTF moment, right?
DTR.
Define the relationship. Oh, DTF. Whoops. That was a little Freudian slip. My bad.
When you have that DTF moment, it's all the same.
Well, with love and respect to white ladies, the DTF moment tends to come a little sooner, which is nice.
You doing
So there's that.
down to relationship or define the relationship?
Define the relationship.
Got it.
Down to relationship.
That's a verb
I'm
now.
down, yo.
That's verb
All right,
now.
so DTR, tends to come a little later, which is nice. So it kind of prolongs that ambiguous I have no obligations phase, which as a guy, I will say that's really nice. I enjoy that phase. It's
So a little bit more casual.
a little bit more casual. Less needing to impose labels and less needing commitment. That being said, when I'm looking for commitment, I am looking for a commitment. Like I'm in it or not in it. And so when I am in it, I've noticed that Asian women do tend to be more about that, which I appreciate.
Who do you think you're going to end up with, like ultimately?
That basically all boils down to, am I okay with my kids being half Asian, basically. So I'm thinking like, I show up to a family reunion with half Asian kids, like what's that gonna be like, right?
What is that going to be like?
I don't know. I mean, my white relatives are a little bit hick, so it could be a little awkward.
Do you think there would be pushback? Obviously not from your parents.
I mean, look, they can go
but from
fuck themselves if there's any pushback. Like it's my life, That all being said, I have read that children of mixed racial backgrounds have like certain issues that like others don't, you know what I'm saying? So like there is an argument to be made for not inflicting that on your kids in a sense.
Well, the argument is eventually we're all going to be mixed. So these kids are going to have less and
Right,
less
they were just going to
issues.
keep banging each other till we're all some kind of mocha color.
Yeah, we're just going to be everything. We're all going to look Filipino. Isn't that the whole thing? Who do you think you're going to end up with, Eric? What kind of girl?
Man, that's going to be tough. I've had thought exercises about this, and my mom called me. Yeah, no, it's really it's awful that I call it that. But my mom called me recently, and she said, "Hey, I saw your new LinkedIn profile photo. You're looking a little old. You should consider settling down with someone." And I was like, "Huh, all all right. She's like, you look great, but you're just looking a little old. You should consider settling down with something. And,
Oh my
and
God,
so that was when, and I was like, I'm Asian. I'm going to look like I'm a 6th grader till I'm fucking 50.
Yeah, by the way, another benefit of dating
genetics,
Asian ladies, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, way longer shelf life.
That's true.
But until you hit it.
Until you hit.
Dude, I haven't actually hit puberty yet. I thought you were yeah, my baby hair actually just fell out right now. I'm waiting for my adult hair to come back in, actually.
Eric, you literally could go to high school and still be.
I probably
just fine.
could. I'd be a little creepy, but yeah, I totally could. I'd be like the Matthew McConaughey. But,
Okay.
Yeah, but as soon as after Mom had called, that's when the thought exercises had started, and I really had to think about, oh my God, am I actually going to end up alone, or do I take the easy route out and go over to Eastern Europe or the APAC region and go pick up a Filipino wife?
But I think it's important to note that I just want to do a disclaimer right now. I'm sure we're offending a lot of people.
Most definitely.
I'm not trying to represent any group of people. You're not trying to represent. Dan is not trying to represent all white males who date Asians and. Although he wants to.
Well, look, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there dating Asian women who aren't on your podcast, and I would hope that I'm representing this perspective fairly.
Or the vice versa. I don't think Eric is trying to represent every Asian man that dates white females. So I'm going to bring up some uncomfortable issues, right? Let's just go uncomfortable. White privilege. It's real. I've had white boyfriends. I've had Asian boyfriends. I've had non-white, non-Asian. And I find that I get treated better when I am with a white guy. And I've noticed that more and more now that I'm more observant of it. I get better service. I get faster service at restaurants. I get nice people. Sometimes I get free shit.
Even in SF?
Even in SF. I was with my white boyfriend on a plane once, and the stewardess gave us a bottle of free wine. I don't know why. That has never happened to me when I've dated non-white.
That's never happened to me, and I'm white.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, where are these? Like, can I get some white privilege points? Like, where did I redeem those?
Do you experience the same dating white women?
It's definitely an advantage if you're white in general. Being an Asian male, 5'6", and bald, mind you, and you just so happen to have a preference for Caucasian women, you have been dealt one of the worst hands. You've been dealt a pretty difficult hand. I shouldn't say worse, but it's a pretty fucking difficult hand. And so I have had to try my very best to, first of all, ignore the economics and the numbers and statistics and around it, because it will just be demoralizing and depressing. And instead just rely on being as fucking awesome as you possibly can. And it's tough knowing that I approach a Caucasian girl and I show interest, and I talk to her, and I ask her out, and most of the time I can get their number, but then, you'll have that conversion rate where that awful conversion rate where they just won't text you back. I think that's fairly indicative of most males, right?
I get that too with white girls.
Yeah, definitely. No,
What
most
about
definitely.
Asian girls?
And,
Slightly better.
Slightly better, yeah.
So, so you basically turned my question around to your insecurities. I was asking if you
I'm
have...
sorry.
I don't know if that's insecure. That is statistics, though.
It is Asian men.
I want to know if you were treated differently when you're with a white female versus an Asian female.
I can't say I've ever felt like I've been treated differently.
Another kind of sensitive topic is this idea of what you're able to get. So you were saying, well, you have better luck with hot Asian females versus hot white females.
Yeah.
So why not go for the hottest you can get?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So then there's also this idea of it's much harder to date white females when you're an Asian man. So when you can get a white girl, you're like high-fiving your friends because you're like, I got a white female.
Yeah.
I'm not a commodity. Is the thing.
I don't know, man. I mean, for a 5'6"
like-
Asian guy, like
Whoa.
you got good style. You're working it.
Hey, thanks, man. Love it.
Is it like there's a love connection going on here? Well, he is Asian.
Slap a wig on me.
I mean, look, if I ever
have
a wig on it.
We're in San Francisco, right? We can experiment? Whatever.
Oh my God, it'd have to be a phenomenal wig at this point.
Oh.
So you're fully aware of this idea of what you're able to get.
Oh, I know for a fact that I can't score girls in the marina. I go there out of sheer amusement and to entertain my friend because he just, for some reason, only stays in the marina to go out and drink. I have I know what I look like. I know what I can conceivably score. I get what I get. I don't have, like I mentioned, I've been dealt a pretty difficult hand. I do not complain.
Okay. And Dan, why do you think you have better luck with hot Asian women versus hot Caucasian women?
I think I get more mileage with Asian women.
What's more mileage? Define.
What I mean is, I can get a hotter Asian gal than I can get a white gal.
Uh-huh. But why? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that white people are more in demand, generally speaking. So me being white gives me some kind of like bonus points or something, which I'm certainly happy to apply, you know, within the context of dating Asian women.
Can you tell when an Asian woman is into white men?
Oh, like, do I have some kind of sixth sense for like if she's gonna be into it?
Are there symptoms of you're like,
I mean,
that Asian girl loves white men?
No, I mean, I wish, like, if there's such a thing, like, let me know. Because I'm just going case by case and trying my luck.
Because, you know, we have a sixth sense when it comes to white men. You know, there's a stereotype of what a yellow fever white man looks like.
Wait, are you able to pick up on that, Yue?
Even in Tinder profiles.
Are you
I
shitting
can
me?
pick it up.
Hold on. All right.
6 out of 10.
Can we drill into this a little bit? What are the giveaways?
So here's some physical giveaways, all right? Just to be totally candid. Usually pale, not too tan. Tall, lanky, slightly nerdy.
Do I qualify for that?
I don't know. You tell me if you qualified or not.
I think I do.
Jewish. Just kidding.
Jewish. Have sort of a loud personality, kind of like like chatty and loud, talkative. That seems to be the stereotype that we've found. Me and my friends, not the entire Asian.
That's interesting.
Because the guy that you've described, I see him in the marina killing it with white gals.
Yes, I see that. Okay, superficially, I see what you're talking about. A different sort of personality. It's like the guy who's more into video games, who's more into like maybe anime, who's more into movies, who's an introverted extrovert.
Okay, way to describe my entire life.
Dude, come to the dark side. Date Asian women.
Come to the dark side.
Why is that the dark side?
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, skin tone wise, yes.
Well, that's what I meant.
You are correct in that regard.
How do you feel now that you know that there is sort of like a superficial stereotype?
Well, I mean, there is a bit of self-interest here. I think it self-applies a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like at least 4 out of 5 of the traits you described, that's kind of me.
You should put that on your dating profile. You realize that, right?
Really?
Yeah, you should.
Just start advertising.
Well, here's a good question for you. When you go on dates with girls, do you tell them that you prefer Asian women?
Hell no. Because they'll think that I'm fetishizing them, which is a turnoff.
Do you not think you're fetishizing them?
No.
Why is
Because I'm
that?
perfectly willing to date non-Asians.
Do you have any rebuttal to that?
I think that Asian women fetishize him.
Ah, interesting. Why do you
Oh,
think that is?
can we speak to that for a moment?
Yeah.
Sure.
Are you familiar with the OkCupid racial dating data?
I haven't read it recently, but please divulge.
So check this out. So, and this is not exactly accurate. This is numbers. I read it months ago. But that being said, white guys show about a 7% preference for Asian women versus neutral. Asian women show about a 20 to 25% preference for white guys versus neutral. So really, it's not so much that white guys have Asian fever or yellow fever towards Asian women, but rather that Asian women have like white fever towards white guys.
Does that impact you, Eric, in your dating preferences, knowing that Asian women fetishize white men?
I have no problem with Asian women fetishizing white men because, quite frankly, that leaves more Caucasian women for me. So it's all about swinging the numbers in my favor, right? As best as I can, anyway. Right?
Numbers game.
So
Yeah, they're taking
it. Honestly, is. It is a numbers game.
No, those
I'm not-
Asian women are taking us off the market.
That's fine by me.
Bam.
I have no problem with that. Have fun.
Do you think this is in other parts of the country as much as SF? Can we talk about that?
I mean, I see it in New York. I see it in LA. Big cities, for sure.
I mean, I've lived in Boston, which is very conservative, and I don't I mean, I haven't lived there in a few years, but it was not as prevalent as San Francisco.
Maybe it's just a supply and demand issue too, right?
Yeah.
So when I lived in Beijing, we have this term for these men called LBH, losers back home, which are these guys, these white guys who can't get much action in the States or in North America, and they go to China and they're able to date any local they want because
Wait, is that true?
it's very prevalent.
I'm gonna check Travelocity.
Yeah, there you go. But you don't like fobs or bobas, or I guess they're not really fobs or bobas when they actually are locals.
Yeah.
So it's like these guys who go to China because they become celebrities in a way. And it's not so much nowadays. It used to be this way like 10 years ago. Because there is this thought that white people can help us excel, move forward in society. It's what we've been taught in the media. I used to play with white dolls as a kid, even in China, because there were no Asian dolls to play with. I mean, even like as love interests in movies, it's always a white male who's a love interest. So ever since I was little, it's kind of like, oh, if you're with a white male, he'll help propel you into a higher status in society.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I mean, you're open to white males. I have a lot of friends that only date Asian guys. And I know, like...
A lot of Asian girls who only date Asian guys. Yeah.
So why do you think that some Asian girls don't have that, like, feeling of this superstar white guy versus others?
I really think it's from your upbringing. And you talked about this, Eric, as well. I grew up in Michigan, Colorado, where I was surrounded by white people all the time. So I felt very comfortable with my white counterparts. But also, Chinese people are very racist against their own people, extremely racist. So I had a lot of self-hate growing up. And being in a white-dominated society, I felt like finally I find a place where I don't have to self-hate anymore. I feel more accepted into this culture. But a lot of my Asian girlfriends who grew up in California or in New York in very Chinese or Asian concentrated communities, the Asians who are in America, like in California and New York, who've been here for generations are so proud of their roots and their culture that it's instilled in them since they were kids. So it's always like, be proud to be Asian, be proud of your culture. So it really depends on your upbringing. I do want to wrap up, but I want to hear from the white women in the room.
Oh, geez.
Any questions?
Can I boost your conversion rate?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't see why not. Yeah.
I give you my number or you give me your number.
Either or.
Okay, so we're doing a live pickup here. Kate, who just wrapped up an episode.
Should we have someone, I guess, narrate it with a British accent as to the encounter?
Like a nature documentary?
Watch as the Caucasian female attempts to pick up the Asian male. He timidly shrouds behind the table, drinking and sipping more alcohol.
Come over here for a sec.
Oh God, okay.
Have you ever dated Asian? Have you ever dated an Asian male?
You'll only barely regret this.
I can't remember, so it must be no.
What?
What is it about Eric that attracted you?
He's hilarious. I have had so much fun listening to this podcast.
All right, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I apologize.
Yeah, it's cool. Don't worry about it.
He doesn't look uncomfortable
I have
at all.
no
He's just trying to hide his boner right
self-esteem
now. And Kate's husband is here as well. This is like just getting very interesting. Then how do you feel about this right now? Have you ever dated Asian?
You slap away.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think that I've shown a clear preference for any particular race. I can say, because I think it'll help the narrative, that after my dad divorced my white mom, he's been dating exclusively Asian women.
Oh.
That is quite the trend, though.
He's Jewish.
We're just validating all the stereotypes.
It's been
and they've all been, what have we been saying, fresh off the boat?
Yeah. I think for all of us and also listeners at home, when we're dating outside of our race, there is this question of, and I think I challenge everyone to think this way, am I dating this person as a novelty, or am I authentically trying to connect with this person and want to get to know them? Because there are sometimes you're just like, this is just very new and interesting and kind of sexy, but I have no interest in pursuing this further. versus I authentically want to get to know this person and they just happen to be of another race, right? Keeping that in mind. But we do have 2 other white women who dated Asian men.
I guess this goes, I'm also a white Jewish female, so I guess this
Stereotype!
It was in college, and it actually was my best friend at the time that transferred over to romantic. It did cause a lot of issues with my family. They were not okay with it at all.
The person being Asian.
Yeah.
I mean, and talking about the privilege, like I've been in a long-term relationship with someone that's white and a long-term relationship with someone that's Asian, and I feel like there are a lot of doors that open up and opportunities that I now notice, you know, having a partner that is white, and it's like kind of unfortunate to look at it that way. Also, like with the families, I think that my parents never took it seriously. You know, dating someone so far from our own culture too, and even more when that person was Asian.
And I think you've mentioned this, like we're all eventually going to mix and all this. And I think our generation, especially in San Francisco, where it's so culturally diverse, I think everyone's just more open than like our parents' generation that just didn't know from this. Like they knew from sticking with their kind.
Well, it's rough. And if I could piggyback on what you just said, my parents are very accepting. They would pretty much be happy with whoever I showed up with at this point. But
even with me, even with me,
you know, if I
Yeah. Eric, you are very popular today.
Thanks, man. Dude, let's just try it as a thought exercise.
That would surprise the shit out of them, but they'd get over it.
They'd be like, awesome.
Well, we didn't see this one coming, son, but well, we're on board with whatever you want to do. No, but I hear what you're saying. You know, in being half Jewish, my mom converted, so she did the whole ocean dunking thing that we're supposed to do. And I've had to, you know, in thinking about, you know, I'm in my early 30s, and thinking about the long-term situation, it's like, you know, if I marry outside the Jewish culture, that's going to die with me, right? So I think that is something that may apply to a number of different people. You know, like if you date someone outside your culture and you abandon whatever your parents' culture was, that then ends with you. Yeah. So I think that's something to consider.
Yeah, no, a lot of inclusionary dating and ending up with somebody within your own race has got to do with cultural and religious factors. So in that case, when I say that inclusionary dating can be considered racist in some regard or perhaps prejudice, it's justified to that extent. Where it's like, it's okay because we want you to be able to continue this type of lineage. Right, but then again, you know, as we all begin to mix and turn a nice shade of taupe, we'll probably all be believing in the flying spaghetti monster eventually.
I went to this beautiful wedding a few months ago, and they said something in their vows that said, "I can't wait to start new traditions with you." And I thought that was very insightful and also just opened up this whole new perspective about marriage. We've been spending the last couple generations trying to maintain our roots and try to pass on these traditions, and now we're at a point where we can create new ones. And I find that very, very exciting for all of us. I'm going to wrap this up. I have a really fun game for all of us in just a sec, but any last minute comments? We started this pretty lighthearted talking about yellow fever, but we're really talking about is dating outside of our own race and culture. Any advice you can give to people who are dating outside their own race?
I guess coming from me, I guess I'd probably have to quote Han Solo, "Don't ever tell me the odds." just do it. Just try it out. Do your research. Swing the numbers in your favor. It's really the only thing you can do. And if you've got privilege, man, use it.
Use it. Speaking of privilege, Dan?
Thanks, Yue. I don't know. Follow your heart, follow your gut, do what feels right. That's all I can say.
Okay, and I would say own it. If you fucking have yellow fever, just fucking own it. Do what Dan did.
I super duper have yellow fever.
Yeah, you are full-blown yellow fever.
Oh yeah.
Stage 4 yellow fever.
And there's no antidote.
Wow.
I would say just to stay sensitive and empathetic. I think the best situation is for you to stay empathetic towards someone that you may not have much in common with, and just try to get to know them as best as possible and be as understanding as best as possible. Okay, so here's a fun little game for us. I have our friends at Condomania gave us a little care package, sent us 7 condoms, which is perfect. There's 7 people in the room. They all have different packaging. It's like their newest condoms. I gave everyone a condom. Read over what your condom package says, and I'm gonna go around the room and I want you to try to sell us the condom that you have in your hand. Yeah? Okay. Who can I start with? Yeah, Dan?
Do you have any plus size? I mean, we are the chosen people.
So what's your condom?
Oh, mine says latex Viagra on it, in quotes.
Should ask your doctor if you have any heart issues before you
What do you have?
I have the iron grip and the one latex condom iron grip, and the catchphrase for this is tighter size for iron men.
What does that mean?
It leads me to suspect that is a really good euphemism for individuals who do not fit a magnum.
Let's go to Kate.
It says 1 in 10 on the front, which I immediately finished to think 1 in 10 fails, so that can't be right.
You're supposed to sell it.
Ben?
I have here a Trojan brand Natural Lamb luxury condom.
Ooh.
I don't think I've ever seen one of these before. Like, for real. Must be super rare. But,
What do you think that luxury condom means?
I think it's expensive. But I think it's expensive because it's made of lamb.
Sold. Julie?
Mine says naked. Naked technology relaxed fit. You're protected, but you're not feeling it.
Okay. Kimia?
I've got the turquoise blue. It says sheer glide. I want to say feel wetter than a mermaid.
Last but not least, I've got mine. It says skin. It's a black wrapper in the front. Skin with Y, which I'm guessing it feels like skin, but it's not because you're protected. Means luxury.
And latex free.
And latex free, yes. It's just human skin.
Wow. Sold.
So, this over lamb. For sure. Well, thanks for playing, you guys. I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks so much for telling us your yellow fever and white fever stories, respectively. Listeners at home, we want to hear your stories. We love talking about race and dating. I think we need to talk more about this because this is something we don't really talk about in San Francisco. It's like San Francisco is one of those places that's so liberal that you don't talk about race. Oh, it's not a thing. Do you know what? It's a thing. It's a thing here, and we should open up that conversation. We want to hear from you. Tell us your stories. We can protect your identity and the identity of people that are involved in your story. And with that said,
Stay dateable.
Your action item for this week is to expand your search filter, whether it's age, ethnicity, or height. How do you know what you want if you haven't had it yet, right? And from all of us here at Dateable, we wish you a happy and safe Halloween. The most efficient way to meet new people is a combination of online and offline. 500 Brunches has your offline covered. Connect over brunch with new friends. Come alone or bring a buddy. There is always a table full of friendly faces, mimosas, and eggs Benedict. Sign up at 500brunches.com and use the code DATEABLE for a free entry. To connect with us, visit dateablepodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all under Dateable Podcast.